let me show you how to make some beautiful winter snowflakes. Hey y'all, it's Melly. I'm going to do something a little different today. Normally I turn on my music, I jam out, I get in my flow, I just work, I film it, and then I go back and edit it and do the voiceover and all that. I'm not very good at talking on camera. I'm still a little uncomfortable with that. It still makes me a little bit nervous. So that's why you get a lot of and so, and I lose my words when I'm trying to talk on camera, which if you knew me in person would think that would be impossible. So today, see, there I go again. But today we're gonna try to do an actual tutorial, talk to you while I'm working, something a little different. It may or may not work, but we're gonna try. There's a couple of different ways that we can do our snowflakes. The main way that we're gonna do this is like this. Sorry about my chair squeaking, by the way. Is the clay embroidery style. But also you can use your cutters to do this. I used a cutter on this example here. Your cutters though are gonna make bigger snowflakes. This is one test I did. This and this are made with the same cutter. The shape is inverted, I guess is what you say. It's flipped around anyway. All of the cutters that I may or may not use are from the Creative Dork. Here's a whole tile full of tests that I did. I absolutely love this. Of course, I would put more stuff in the middle here, and that goes for all of these. Like all of these would be filled out, you know, with little cutesies around them, like I did with this. I did the cuts and then added a whole lot more around. This and this same cutter. That cutter only went one way. This one and this one are the same cutter. This one and this one. This one and this one. And this one and this one. So you can see you can get a lot of different designs just from one cutter. These two were also made with the same cutter. I just, it has like 5 petals there. I just cut the outer 2 off for these. I love this one. This is one of my favorites, but I think it's probably way too big to use for jewelry, unless you just made like a large pendant with the single snowflake on it. But these would be beautiful to use for like an ornament or something like that. It'd be great for that. These bigger ones would be great for that. And this is just a little bowl here with my various cutters that I may use. Before we get started, let me show you the tools that I'm going to be using for that. Oh, and the clay. Now I've got to roll this clay out a little bit thinner, but this is that white glitter clay from Primo. So what I did is I added a whole lot more of just the plain iridescent glitter, like as much as I thought the clay could take, basically. So I filled that up with the iridescent glitter. So we're going to use that. The other thing I'm going to use is these tiny little cutters. I'm going to roll the clay out thin because I want very small pieces, but I don't want to try to use the cutters that are any smaller than that because it just gets stuck. Those are hard enough to use. And then if I need a bigger piece, I can put 2 or 3 together. Does that make sense? Needle tools. I made my own needle tools. For a long time, I used just these needle tools that I bought. They work okay, but look at the size of these compared to those. This will give you much more detailed work. So if you're interested in doing this type of clay work, the biggest tip I can give you is to make your own needle tools. Let's get it over and show you. I made a little holder for mine. Now these are not out in the holder all the time, just when I'm working with them. That way, see, they're mixed up now. That way I can keep them in order from smallest to largest, so I don't have to look through every one every time and figure out which one I want. This is just a string of clay with a sewing needle shoved in the tip. They're super easy to make. I just had a multi-pack like this of like cheap sewing needles, and I just went through and picked me out some different sizes. And yeah, I like this one. It's got a very blunt tip on it, so it's good for a lot of things. That's the largest one, and then that's my smallest one. Every one of mine are in here crooked though. You see how crooked it is? I couldn't get any of them straight, but it doesn't matter. They work just as well. The other thing is ball tools. Most of you are going to have these. These are little nail art dotting tools. Same thing. There again, I made me a little holder so I can keep them in order and size. Now, these are my brand new hexagonal cutters. These are going to be a lifesaver. and you'll see why. And then if you want your other cutters like we talked about, you're gonna need those. And that's basically it. I'm gonna move the camera to where it's not overhead, but kind of off to the side, so that hopefully you can see what I'm doing a little bit better, okay? Now we move on to the fun part. This one right here is one of my favorites, so I think we'll do this one. You can see here on these where I was testing, where I had a circle, and that was to help keep everything in line and everything even, but I kind of had to guess at where the points would be and just do the best I could with those. So that's where the hexagon cutters come in. And see, we'll be able to see where our points are, get those nice and even and nice and straight in the right place, all that good stuff. I've got my white glitter clay here that I've already punched out lots of holes. If you're going to do this with those tiny cutters, the clay has got to be stuck down to a glossy glazed tile. Otherwise, there's just no way. It's all going to stick in your cutter, and yeah, you got a mess. So make sure your clay is attached very well to your tile before you start cutting those little circles out. So let's start with this one. Now, what we're going to have to do is figure out the size that we want this one. I have, my smallest one is a 1/2 inch. This one's 3/4 inch, and that one fits pretty good. I don't want them all to be huge. You know, I want some to be small. I think we'll go with this one for now. So what I'm going to do is use this to make a mark. We're going to put it down here so hopefully you can see it well. And just barely press it in. Just enough that it leaves a mark I can see. Okay, now I can't really see that one. I mean, I barely can, so I'm going to try to put it back in the same place so I don't make additional marks. But I would rather have to do it 2 or 3 times than go in too heavy from the start and have a big line that I've got to try to, yeah, see, I went in way too heavy on that one. Way too heavy. Especially up here. So now I'm going to have to try later to fix that. So yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Don't go in too heavy, especially on your first shot. Alright, then I'm going to take my tool and I'm going to connect my points so that I have lines in here to follow. You could do this with a straight edge. I did try that to start with, but found out it was really more trouble than it's worth. I found it best to just do the best I can. And see, I got that one a little bit off. That's okay. I think I need one of my bigger needles. Yeah, let's go with this one. And then I can kind of lay that one down. It's long enough that I can lay it down and get it in the right spot. There again, I am making those too deep, but maybe that'll help you be able to see them too. Good way to cover my mistakes, right? Oh yeah, I did that for you. Alright, so there are my 6 points. In case you didn't know this, all snowflakes are 6 points. Some that are not 6 points, but they are extremely rare. And I forget what they are. It's not like just some random number. I want to say it's either 3 points or maybe 5. I don't know. I can't remember. But basically, you know, almost all your snowflakes are 6 points. Okay. So what I want to do now is line this one up, because this one, if you look here, I've got these little pieces here. Okay. This cutter, I don't know if you probably can't see that down in there, but the mark that this cutter makes is going to tell me where to start these little points here. Okay. So I've got to get this lined up inside here. I'm going to use those lines I made to line up with my points and get this centered the best that I can. You may not be able to see this very well because I've got to get this where I can see it. There's just no way around that. It's got to, and if it's not in the right spot, then you might have 1 or 2 points that line up, but all of them won't. So once you get all 6 of your lines coming into those points, maybe you can see those, then you know you've got it, you know, centered inside the larger one. All right, so I think that's good. Let's make a mark. Now see, that mark was better. I can see it, but it's nowhere near as deep as the first one. All right, the first thing we got to do is make these lines here. I wish you could see this better. This is a bad example because the color doesn't show up. This is pretty much trial and error. I got to pick which dot I think is going to give me the length that I want without being too thick or too thin. That's not like the thinnest line ever. So let's try here. We're going to start kind of in the middle. and we just have to roll it out and test fit it. That's really all I know to do. Roll it in a ball to start with. You have to make, because this is a teeny tiny piece of clay, if you want to roll this in a ball, you got to make teeny tiny movements, okay? So I have that in a ball now. I'm going to lay it on this tile. This is a matte finish tile, so it's not going to really stick to it, which is good. And gently, I don't want the tips of this pointed really, so I'm going to try to make, well, I'll show you. And then try to pick it up without, alright, see how the tips of that are not really pointed? That's what I'm going for here. Now, I mean, the one I made the other day, the tips were pointed more, and it was like fatter in the middle, which isn't exactly what I wanted. I want it more even all the way through the length. Alright, so let's test fit this. And that is only going to go to where, I want my little petals to start. So it's got to be longer than this. But I think I do like this size, so I don't want to make it smaller, which means I'm going to have to go with a larger circle. So that one was this size. Let's go up to here. Some of these pop out really easy, some of them don't. You know, that sound, just let me put something on the back of that tile. Okay, I know y'all did not want to listen to that tile clickety-clacking against that other tile any more than I wanted to. You probably don't want to listen to my squeaky chair either. I'm going to have to see if I can figure out how to fix that. Okay, so this is the next to the largest one. There you go. I'm going to make a teeny tiny little ball. Put it on my tile. You can do this in your fingers like this, but there again I find I get a more pointed shape. More of like a long skinny football than an even piece like this. I wonder if a silicone tool would pick it up any better. Let's try. Probably not. No. Well. Alright, so this is what we got now. And I think that's going to be perfect because remember I got to put my dot. I think that's going to be good because I got to put my dot here. One thing I got to do before I start this, I need to keep him there for reference. One thing I got to do is clear out my marks. That has to be done before we can go any further. And get me a silicone tool here, and just gotta try the best we can to smooth that out. Now I want to keep these lines, and I want to keep this point here where those intersect. And looking at this, I believe that's all I want. I want this line and this point where they intersect. Yep. So that means what I can do is take a fatter needle, make a point there where they intersect so I can see that a little better. But you know, if I'm looking at this, if I do that there, I don't think that's going to give me enough room. I wonder if I should go halfway between this point and this point and start it there. I don't think that's really going to work either. I think it needs to be just below this, like right there, maybe. So let's try to get that in the same spot on all of them. Just make me a little crosshatch there. Can't really see what I'm doing, so let me look and see if I got it about like I want it. Now I feel like I am not very prepared for this tutorial. You know what I mean? But that's probably about par for the course with me, right? I mean, it doesn't surprise me that I'm not. I mean, but I can't help it. That's just the way I work. Like, things just change as I go. And sometimes I just have to figure them out in my head along the way. Do you guys work that way? Or are you like, you make a plan, you stick to it, and that's just it? See, I'm not like that. I make a plan, but then it changes as I go. Okay, and yes, I know that you can still see this, but that's okay. Yeah, a good bit of it will get covered up by the snowflake. And then what doesn't get covered up can be smoothed out after you get the snowflake on. There again, I want to just make sure that all of my reference marks that I need are visible. Looks about right. These lines are showing up a lot more in the camera than they are in person. But that may be because I've got it zoomed in. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is go over it with my brush just to try to blend in some of those. But now you see why I said you need to make those like as soft as you can make them. And don't press them in any harder than you need to. Okay, I think that's good. Now the lines from point to point, I need those. Those will actually help the little strings of clay. That will help them sit into place. Okay, that's good. Leave it alone though. Okay, I think I squished my little thing there. So we're gonna roll him back out. I may need to go over those lines again just to give this a better place to sit. And I think that's about the right length. Okay, so I'm gonna make 5 more of those. That's not right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Need one more. Okay, so the bigger the piece of clay that you're working with that you want to ball up, the more you're gonna move, if that makes sense. The smaller the piece, the smaller the little round motion needs to be. Gently roll this out. You have to be gentle here. Don't want to do too much too soon, because you're either going to get it too far or it won't be even. You know, like it'll have dips and points and things. I'm just trying to check and make sure these are pretty close to the same length. That one could be a little longer, but I think it's close enough. It's too long, and the tips are too pointed. And yes, I'm that picky with this stuff. Yeah, see, if you put too much pressure on that at one time, it makes it pointed on the ends. If you don't want it pointed, you gotta go slow. Very, very light pressure. Get it in place. Gently press it down. See, these are still not as even as I would like them. See how they fattened out once I pressed them? Because that part was thicker. That worked pretty good though, didn't it? Just kind of shoving it in a little bit. That worked. Okay. Now the next part is going to be these little pieces here. Okay, I'm going to use my smallest needle tool for that, which I already have out. And we got to figure out what size dot we need. There again, I don't want those too teeny tiny. So I'm thinking this size here might work. Let's try it and see. Start out with a ball. And then, so you do your little round movement. Then you want to go larger. And then that will give you more of this shape. Alright, So let's see for a test fit. I mean, I really can't exactly see my marks anymore, but I can see where the smaller hexagon went, and I know I wanted to go just inside that, so probably about halfway between there and there. Okay, so let's see if this little guy is going to be about the right size. Might could go a little smaller. I don't think, see how I had a circle inside here? I don't think I'm going to have room for that here, unless I do move this up to here, which is where my smaller, I might do that, I don't know. But I also don't want these to meet right here, because then it'll be like the other snowflake if I have them meet. So let's go down a size here. But that also means I don't need to make these, like when I roll these little pieces out, I need to keep them fairly condensed and not too long, because if they're too long, then they're going to wind up meeting. So just, yep. That is a beautiful shape there. Yeah, that's going to be more what I want. Okay, so I need 12 of these. Okay, I've got all those rolled out, so it's time to place them. Like I said, I think I'm going to go ahead, place them there, because I want to have room here for the dot, and I don't want these to meet. Now with these little pieces, ovals, whatever you want, okay, I'm going to press them in once I get them on there. You can just go straight in with the needle tool like that without flattening it, but I want to flatten it just a little bit. It's just a little bit of a different look. These are so fun to make. I mean, you can just kind of get in your zone and just chill out. And I mean, if you like working with small, kind of tedious things like this. If you don't, you're gonna hate this, but if you do, if you enjoy doing that, this is a lot of fun. I'm gonna take my smallest, like I said, this is my smallest needle tool. I like to start my needle just not here, but just inside like that. I mean, this is teeny tiny stuff. I mean, that's my finger. So this is teeny tiny stuff. So you're not gonna get it the same every time. Now, if you are like me, and shall we say of a certain age, you're probably going to need your magnifying glasses for this. I do a lot better when I'm using my magnifying glasses. Of course, right now I'm using the phone where it's zoomed in. And see, that one, I went too far, and I prefer to start just around from that. But, you know, I mean, that's just personal preference. But like I said, you're not going to get it perfect every single time anyway. Just like the shape and, you know, the pressing it flat or leaving it round before you, you know, all of that is just personal preference. And all of that is going to give you a different look. When you're working this small, tiny little things like that make a difference. Probably more of a difference than you would think they would make. But they do. They make a difference. Okay. So what's next? If we're looking at this one, okay, we've got the circles here, and the center circle. There's two ways to do this. I can get a dot from here and roll it into a ball and then press it on. What I like to do, if I can, it doesn't always work this way. What I prefer to do is just take my dot, get my needle in there, just pick it up, and if I can get a good, which that one isn't really, well, that's okay. Yeah, if I can get a good clean circle, I prefer to just use it this way versus rolling it up and then pressing it back out. So let's see if that's the size circle we want. Let's try a size bigger. Now I forgot which size that was. Listen at me, I done forgot. y'all, about as country as they come. Okay, I like this one better. So that was the third size. And I'm going to put those right over those dots that I made. Press them down just a little. So I want to retain that circular shape, but I also want to retain that like flat disc shape. And if I press it too much, it's going to alter the shape a little. We're getting there. Looking cute already. In the center, I definitely want a big one. Let's try the biggest one. See if it'll fit. I like that. But you know what? I better do the tiny ones. And, whoop, oh, no! See, that's what happens when you're looking through the viewfinder instead of... Okay, don't worry. Don't panic. Fix it. Okay. But now I forgot what I was saying. I panicked a little. Oh, I need to put the ones that go here first, because they may not fit if I don't. And I just noticed that these are actually up against the center circle. So maybe I do need to do the center circle first. And that way I know better where to place those. I almost don't know if that's big enough. What do you guys think? Well, it's going to have to be because it's the biggest cutter I've got. Alright, let's start with the teeny tiny ones. Which the teeny tiny ones, I may not be able to use them as they are without rolling them out, because I may not ever pop them out of there and retain the shape. That one did pretty good. Okay, let's see if that's the size. And I think that's too small. Okay, we'll put you right there so we know where you go. Let's try this size here. I think this is one size down from what we put on the end. Okay, I like that better. I want it close to, but not quite touching the center, or the little legs or spokes or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it doesn't want to come off the... Sometimes it needs a little encouragement. That spot is just for you. Okay, see, somehow, I guess maybe these were fatter. Okay, so this one, I can't move this one down anymore. So this one is going to have to be moved out. It's not as close as I wanted it, but that's okay. So I probably shouldn't press these down too much until I get them all on there. Okay, I think that looks pretty even. Let me pick it up and see. Not exactly, is it? That's a little better. I think it's just this thing right here. Let's see if I can scooch it in. It's like just fatter than the rest of them. And it's throwing everything off. Okay, that helped a little. So now, I can scoot this little guy over where he needs to go. Much better. Much better. Next, we'll do this one. I love this one. I will show you how we did that. But I need to roll the white glitter clay on a thicker setting. This needs to be a little bit thicker. It's easier to work with that way. It doesn't distort as easily when you're taking it out of the, either off the tile or out of the cutter. And I think it just looks nice to have that a little bit thicker than the rest. Okay, so let me roll out some of my glitter clay. I'm going to say probably the dots, where I cut the dots out, I think I did that on number 6. So I'm going to say probably a number 4 for these. I'll try and see if that's too thick. Okay, number 4 was just a little bit too thick, so I stepped it down to a number 5. Okay, I've cut out 6 of these. Now, one thing I want to say, if you're going to use cutters for this, you need to practice on a tile, like I did. before putting it straight onto your piece, because not all of them are going to go together the way you think they will, and you're going to need to know how far to space them out and things like that, because not all of them are going to meet up in the middle. Now this one does, well, I mean, it doesn't meet all the way in the middle. So if I had tried to make these touch, then it wouldn't work. And the same with a lot of these others, like with these, for instance, I had no idea how to make these, how far apart to make these. So I would lay them down on the tile and then, but not attach them, and then scoot them around, which that one's really crooked, but that's okay. It's just a test. Scoot them around until you got them where they would fit. So I would definitely suggest testing that out first before just going straight in on your piece here. Blade, I need a blade. But I think having the octagon cutters is going to help. It'll help me get these spaced. And also, see, I have that other one done, so I can use my cutters to see what I need to use for a guide, if that makes sense. I'll show you in a minute. Now these are good sharp cutters, but with all this glitter in here, you're going to get some fuzzy edges. Just because, I must have already fixed that one. Just because of the glitter. You're going to get those little crackly edges, fuzzy edges, whatever you want to call them. Gently press those back into place. Okay, here's what I mean. I've already got this one placed, right? So, if I use this cutter, let me see. That's not going to help me out a whole lot. If I use this one, that doesn't, let's try this. Now see, if I use this, it doesn't go all the way to the edges. This one might be about right. I may, if I use this one, I'm going to have a little bit of wiggle room, so I may have a little bit larger center, but I think I'm okay with that. Yes, I've got just a little bit of wiggle room there, but I think I'm okay with that. I think. Okay. See, I didn't have these cutters when I did my test pieces, so I just had to, I mean, it was trial and error and took forever to get them placed right, so. Okay. Need to make a mark. Gently this time, gently. Maybe not that gently. Okay, I can see that. I don't know if you can, but I can. This one's a little light, but I think it's okay. Mainly what I need for this one is just these points, and then the center. I'm definitely going to need the center, so I can make sure I get this point and this point lined up straight. Okay, I don't think I want that big of a needle. So let me make my marks here. And that one's a little bit off. I think that's better. Although I will say, once you get it off, it's hard to get it fixed. I think I'm not going to go all the way to the end there. The main thing is I want to get this point on the line and this point on the line. So from what I can tell, that needs to scooch over that way just a little bit. And I moved it a whole lot. And I think it needs to go out a little bit. Okay, maybe that's good enough. But there again, I don't want to press it down until I get them all into place, because it may need to move. And some of those that I was practicing on, I'll get 5 of them in place to go to put the last one in, and it wouldn't fit. Now one thing, you need to put it like this and make sure this one is straight across from this one, and you see that is not. So we're going to scoot this one over. That one looks to be the main culprit, but I think that one needs to go over a little bit too, and even up here. Ah. Come on now, get back in your spot. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the placement of this one and this one, I think. Go ahead and press those down a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to rotate it where this one and this one are top to bottom. And that helps me at least to see, like, okay, this one's really crooked. So I need to get it lined up in line with this one. Okay, I think that's about as good as I can get it. Okay, so press those down. Then before I go any further, probably should have already done this, I'm going to try to smooth this line out. Okay, I squished that one just a little bit. That's okay. I mean, I'm going to squish them all anyway, shake them up. Find the tool that I want. Okay, here it is. Now, if you're from the South, you're going to know what this tool is. This one belonged to my grandmother. I don't know if people in other parts of the country use these and know what these are or not. If you are not from the South, tell me if you know what this is. Okay, I'm going to use this. Go in right here, rock it out. Oops, sorry, I was out of shot. With it zoomed in, it's hard to keep it in frame. Now, as before with the needle tool, I'm not going all the way down. I'm starting just a little bit back. And then, oh, you can't see. Okay, then set it in. With this tool, because it's rounded, I'm going to set it in and then rock it back. Take my fat needle tool, dot on the end. Oops, sorry guys. And a dot in each of these little corners. But I'm sure there's like a million different ways to decorate these. I think that needle tool was too big. That is not what I wanted, but it's okay because it's too late now. Okay, I'm gonna take my small needle tool again. Just put a line there and there. And it's really just all about how you want to decorate your snowflake. And it's fun just figuring out what, you know, what indentions you want to put and what little pieces you want to add. And but I would definitely suggest, you see how I'm like scooting this tile around and moving around, you definitely need to work on something that you can rotate around and move around. It would make your life a whole lot easier. Put some of these tools up that I'm not using, get them out of my way. My squeaky chair. Okay, now I want to put teeny tiny center in there. Probably not that, maybe. Let's try this size here. I don't think I like that. Now the question is, do I want to smooth those lines out in there? Do I need to smooth them out? See how it looks a little bit bigger one. Okay, now that's even better. And if I do it like I did this one, I did the dots here and then the 3 little petals here. And I really like this design, so I think I'm going to stick with that. Let's try that size. I think that's about what I've got on the original. One thing you've got to be careful of that might be kind of hard to do, especially when you're like zoned in, is you've got to make sure you're not squishing the other snowflakes with your hand as you're working. And the more you get on here, the easier it's going to be to squish them. And the less room you're going to have to rest your hand. Okay, let's press all those down. And now I'm going to go in with those 3 petals here. almost wonder, yeah, I think I'm gonna make a variation. Put my tiniest dot right there. And then for the little petals that are going to go here, let's try the third size down. And then what I want to do here is I have the one in line here. And once again, I'm going to press these flat. I mean, not flat, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to leave them raised. I'm going to press them in flat just a little bit. And then these, and I would suggest getting both of these placed before pressing them in so that, you know, they're angled correctly. I want those coming out the same angle that this is going. Press those in. And then I think I'm going to use a bigger tool for that. This is my, let's try this one. This is my next to the biggest. I think that'll be perfect. So cute. Okay, and you could just, I mean, you could really just keep building and building and building on these. If you wanted to do 3 more of these petals out here, you could. I think this snowflake is pretty large as it is, so I'm gonna leave it be. But anyway, I'm gonna finish this one up. I may film it in time lapse just so you can see, and I may film the whole slab and just do it in time lapse. We'll see. So the first 2 of these that I showed you, I was following a pattern that I had previously made just to make things easier on me while I was filming. But most of them I just made up as I went along. There was a couple of them that I had used my previous patterns, but for the most part I made them up as I went along. And if you need inspiration for patterns, just Google snowflake patterns and see what you think you can recreate in clay. And if you look at actual photographs of real snowflakes under a microscope, oh, you'll get so many ideas. Earlier when I was working and I was trying to clear out the lines from my cutters, or smooth out the lines from my cutters with the silicone tools. Well, as I went along, I found a better way to do that, and that was to use my ball tools, dotting tools, whatever you want to call them. But the metal on those, with it being so much firmer, was a lot easier to smooth those lines out. And then, of course, just went back with my brush and redid my texture. As I said, you could keep just building and building on your design and make it as detailed or as intricate as you want. And some of them that I did, I was like, I'm not sure I like that one, I'm not sure I like that one. Well, when that happens, that is your little voice saying, it's not finished, it's not finished. So I went back and I added more things to them until I got it like I wanted, and then it's like, oh yeah, now it's done. And there was a question come up in one of the clay groups of like making slabs and things like this, and they were like, well, how do you know when it's done? That's one of those things. It's just like it's like asking, how do you know when you're in love? I mean, it's just, nobody can tell you that. But when it is done, you know it, just like being in love. Well, I'm making progress. Still not done. I've got the little places marked out where I need to add my smaller snowflakes, plus these little teeny tiny ones I'm adding in to fill up the spaces. A lot of times when you're making a slab, you're going to think it's full enough, but before you call it done, you need to take your cutters, the size or shape or whatever you think you're going to use, and just kind of hover over, and then you will see if you've got blank spots. Like, I thought that this was going to be finished just with these, and then once I put my cutters over and saw what the finished product was going to look like, I realized I had way too much open space. So I've added in these teeny tiny ones here. Another thing I want to show you is that I went back and detailed a lot of these just by adding little dots in with my needle tools. And I really think that made a big difference. It gave it a lot more detail. And some of these I will also go back and add dots in, but I've got to put my little rhinestones in first. But I can't put my rhinestones in until I cut out my shapes, because I don't want the rhinestones in the place of my cutting. one more thing. I know I touched during the video on like how to roll out your shapes and how to make the different shapes and where you put your needle is important and different things like that. But there's a lot more to it than that. And if you would like a detailed video on the clay embroidery style, not that I'm a master at it by any means, but I'm happy to share what I do know and what I've learned. Just those tiny differences make a big difference and can give you a completely different look. So if you'd like a video dedicated to that, where I don't actually make anything, just show you different ways to do your little beads of clay and how to shape them and all that stuff, yeah, just let me know and I'm happy to do that. Okay, so if you would like to see the finished jewelry, you need to follow me on Facebook and Instagram, because that's where I'm gonna post them when I'm finished. Which, come on, you should be following me on Facebook and Instagram anyway. So yeah, go there and that's where I'll post the finished jewelry. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Okay, thanks. Bye.